Check this.
Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be about Cheddar Man. Cheddar Man is the oldest complete skeleton that has ever been found in England. He was found in Cheddar Gorge, and thus was given the name Cheddar Man. Now, Cheddar Man has a very interesting story because what has happened recently is that the modern DNA analysis has been able to determine what he might have looked like when he was alive. And they discovered that he would have had blue eyes and wavy hair, potentially curly, and he would have had maybe a darker complexion, maybe even dark skin. To what they're suggesting is maybe that he could have been black. Now, they did a facial reconstruction of Cheddar Man, and they created this sort of dark bust that you can see on the screen, and they're making the association that he was black. But if you look at the DNA of Cheddar Man, he has haploid U5. Now, U5 is only associated with Europeans. About 10% of Europeans have U5 haploid group, and about a similar percentage in North America of European descendants have the same haploid group. So, if anything, he was probably an early European. Maybe he did have dark skin, but it would probably be more olive skin. The media has taken this story as sort of proof that Africans were the first to colonize England. And this happened around 10,000 years ago, that he was in England and died there. What they don't mention in the story is that there was other skeletons that were even older found in the cave. Now, those skeletons had evidence of cannibalism. One of the heads had been opened up and actually converted into a bull. So the early men had converted a skull into a bull. And as well, there was evidence that the bones were scraped of their flesh. These were reasons why they thought they were cannibals. They're about 4,000 years older than Cheddar Man. And Cheddar Man has no similarity to those other skeletons. So the point is, first of all, Cheddar Man was not black. He would have been early European. Now, skin color is not what makes people white, racially so. It's one of the many things that make people associate us with white, and that's the reason we're called white. But what they believe is that white skin color actually evolved relatively recently, maybe within the last 6 to 8,000 years. So there's a big mistake that people make where they say, oh, there was no white people back then. Well, they were early white people. The current theory is that when these early Europeans switched to farming, that they couldn't get enough vitamin D in their new diets. So what happened was white skin became more prevalent because it had to balance out the fact that they were not getting enough vitamin D in their diets. I'm not sure if that theory is very accurate because there's evidence that there's earlier white people where they found earlier remains, but it's the current theory. Another thing that must be understood about Cheddar Man is that, as I said, he has U5 haploid group, and that, as I said, it's only found in Europe, is about 25 to 30,000 years old, and approximately 11% of Europeans and 10% of European Americans have U5. So haploid 5 actually is only associated with areas where either the Middle East or with Europe. It's one of those situations where it was an early group that had broken off from Africa. They actually figure that what happened was they moved into Europe from Africa, and they mixed in with other groups that were inside of Europe, Neanderthals and so forth. And 10 to 12,000 years ago, there was a land bridge between Europe and England, and these early European groups came over to England at that time across the land bridge, and were the first people to really colonize, I guess. I'm not sure if you'd call it colonize, but just immigrated into England. Now, it's important to understand that these were early Europeans that had come in there. And this is long before England was a country. I mean, England as a country is only a few thousand years old. So by the time England became a country, it was primarily white. These early European groups basically became white, as I said, through farming and so forth. So by the time England was a country, it was founded by white people, even skin-wise, that they were white. And as I said, genetically, they were white for much longer than that. So the point is, the story that's being spun is that England was a black country long before it was a white country. And that's very disingenuous, and it's not true. So why are they trying to spin this narrative? That's the big question. So right now they're trying to make a big push for diversity and integration and immigration. And the point that they're trying to make is that if you don't allow for all these new groups come into England, then you're racist. And they're trying to make a real push that we have to accept that we're all basically the same and that there is no race. I'm going to do a two-part video on this one because it is kind of an interesting discussion. My second part, I'm going to look at a panel discussion that happened on Channel 4. I wanted to get this first video out just to put in the groundwork for a little bit of the history behind Cheddar Man so that you can understand the importance of the Cheddar Man, but also so that you can understand the political implications. That basically what's happening is they're using this Cheddar Man, they're stating that he's a black man, even though he wasn't, and they're trying to use that as propaganda to convince Britons that they have no right to their country and that they should be just embrace all the immigration that's happening now. And I don't think that's right. Britain was a white country and it should still remain a white country. There is no evidence to say that diversity is a strength. I don't know why they persist on trying to force this idea upon Britain. The values and the culture are white. Why do we have to see that be destroyed and dismantled by this current agenda? I'm not advocating against different minorities, but I'm saying that this Cheddar Man should not be a justification for both the mass immigration that's happening, which is going to radically change the culture of England, which is I see as a negative, and the idea that there is no race. Because even though at one time white people were darker skinned, it doesn't mean that there was no white population. And this is the fundamental of racism, that you judge a person just based on their skin color. Races aren't determined by one's skin color. They're determined by much more than that. There's much more of a profound genetic reasoning for the different races. And that's why I would even suggest that there's more races than the ones that they typically say. I would even divide East and West African along racial lines, because there is enough of a difference to define them. This has been Socially Triggered. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll continue on in the second part of this series, where I'll show the panel discussion that happened on Channel 4, talking about Cheddar Man and how they interpreted the findings. Thank you.